All right, this week we're going to be covering Galatians chapter 3, and this Devo is going to cover verses 6 through 9, specifically about Abraham. Listen to what it says starting in verse 6. Just like Abraham, who believed God, and it was credited to him for righteousness. You know then that those who have faith, these are Abraham's sons. Now the scripture saw in advance that God would justify the Gentiles by faith and proclaimed the gospel ahead of time to Abraham, saying, all nations will be blessed through you. Consequently, those who have faith are blessed with Abraham, who had faith. There's a few things that I really want to highlight there. It's really referencing Abraham's faith and that he believed God, and that is what was credited to him as righteousness. The other part that I want you to see is that he had been promised that all nations, not just the Jewish nation, would be blessed through him. Wow. So what is the big deal about Abraham? What's such a big deal about who he is? We're going to attach a link for you to be able to read and to study that on your own if you'd like to. But here's what I want you to see as we look at who Abraham is. Abraham was an absolutely human character. He had frailties and fears, concerns. At the same time, he had this capacity to believe God and to trust God. Who was God to Abraham? Well, God was the one who was interacting with him and teaching him and training him and guiding him. When I look at what's the big deal about Abraham, I look at this man who's human, set aside by God, and that what God was doing was showing all of humanity how he wants to relate to us, how he wants to interact with us. When we look at that, Abraham is a highly revered man, but was especially esteemed by the Judaizers. It was at this common ground that Paul established his argument. So let's listen to what Paul was specifically arguing. See, the Jews felt that they were the offspring of Abraham, which there's really no debate. Physically, that's exactly what they were. Genetically, that's exactly what they were. But Paul was establishing that those who lived by faith were more in line with Abraham. They had more to share with him. Though the Jews had the bloodlines, it's those that are of faith that are more like Abraham, is what Paul was saying. Paul was establishing that faith drove Abraham's works rather than works driving his faith. What he's showing is that it was his absolute faith in God that led him to obedience, that taught him to follow after God and to trust God as he moved forward. It wasn't that Abraham was a superhero. It was that God is God relating to humans, and that he was guiding Abraham through these things. So, I want you to remember this today. Starting at faith will lead you to confident works. Starting at works will lead you to impotent religion. That's what Paul is establishing. That's what Paul is laying out. Won't you start at faith today? Hear God and how he's relating to you, and then trust him as you move forward.